Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rundown with the Cowboy Crab. I'm your host, the Cowboy Crab, and on today's episode of the Rundown, it's a debriefing of Victory Bowl 33. As of the time of this recording, it has been just about an hour or so since Victory Bowl 33 officially ended, and before we get into the debriefing, I would just like to congratulate the Blue Steel City Vikings for winning this year's Victory Bowl number 33, going to Blue Steel, and I'm sure expectations on next season's team are gonna be high. But honestly, they might be able to do it, but we'll get into that. We'll get into next season at a different point in time. Tonight's episode, the debriefing of how the Victory Bowl went. Now, this is mainly going to be me looking statistics and how this game ended up looking out on paper. So we'll start with the big two names of this matchup, LMJ and Relly. On paper right now, as of me just looking at it, I couldn't watch the Victory Bowl, unfortunately, as I was busy doing other stuff, but I can give you the statistics for what this looks like. LMJ, 23 for 41, 451 passing yards, a 56.10% completion rated, and 6 touchdowns. That completion percentage isn't that high for the Victory Bowl winning team, but 6 touchdowns is 6 touchdowns. Meanwhile, young Relly, who went 21 for 24, 562 passing yards, and 87.50 completion rated, the same amount of touchdowns, 6 touchdowns, and an interception. So, really, these two went back and forth for this game. They went back and forth. Just taking a look at this on paper, but of course, 52-49 being the final score, so Vikings really just came down to the final few plays, I guess. And just taking a look at, like, receiving wise, from what I'm looking at these stats, some of the bigger names that people thought would get yards, like Joski, definitely had a good game. TYR, Rocky, they did good. And then when you get to the Knights, Decmus and Runesme, they were doing good. And I guess just the best way to put this, just looking at this game in hindsight on paper, it's just all came down to who had the final drive, and final few plays. I mean, on paper, that's what I was expecting, but the team that won it was definitely not who I thought, so I mean, they proved me wrong. That's something that, I mean, you can take that as a bragging right, or you can just move on with your life and continue to celebrate the fact you guys won a Victory Bowl against the from the official OFL casino stat line, I guess. Well, the betting line, it was DC. It had the favorites. So you were the underdog in this one, even though 1 seed versus 9 seed. I feel like when you tell people that on paper and you ask who the underdog is, most people will go like, "Oh yeah, the 9 seed definitely." And when you say, "Oh no, it was the 1 seed," majority of the under over was in favor of the 9 seed. They'd call you crazy, but it's when you gotta explain it to them is when they'd understand it. So, reality, this game was definitely a good game. A very, very good game. And now looking towards next season, this is definitely what both teams want to do, alright? So, Blue Steel City, this is what they want to do. They're keeping that momentum going. They want to keep it going out of the gate. Week 1, they want to just pummel whoever they play first and turn them inside out and make an example out of them. DC, this is gonna be their vengeance tour, in my opinion. Like, this is gonna be their revenge tour, unless out of the gate they fall flat on their face, and the hangover just keeps getting worse. Like, they keep losing, they lose bad, they get blown out in like week 4, where they're 0-4, they're 1-3. Playoffs are looking slim. They might have to try and They might have to try and slip it in the 9 seed, again. Well, the 8 seed again, win the play-in game, or they come out of the gates swinging again, like Blue Steel City, and the only thing flowing through the veins of that team is vengeance. And for Blue Steel City, I mean, the same thing could be applied. They are so on top of the world, they get overconfident, they get cocky. So when they come out of the gates week 1 next season and they get embarrassed, that's a wake-up call for them, most likely. They're probably going to try and fall back to their Victory Bowl form, and that's just the best way you could put it. Like, there's so many different outcomes. Like, both of these teams could fall flat in their face week 1, and I don't know if that's ever happened before. Both teams that competed in the Victory Bowl next season, in week 1, they both lose. Like, that's a possibility. Like, all the scenarios are possibilities. So, anything can be taken into consideration here. Like, both teams could have absolutely dominant wins. Both teams could win by a field goal. Oh, they could probably even play each other if the schedule makers are like, you know what, let's have a rematch open week 1. Like, first game, streamed by whoever we're just gonna make it Victory Bowl rematch. We saw it last season, but it wasn't, week 1. I think it was week 2, maybe week 3. I think it was week 2. Phoenix Toros rematch. I think that's what it was. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, scroll up a little bit for this. Alright, no, I was wrong. It was week 1. So, they could have the Victory Bowl rematch on week 1 if they want to stay consistent. So, really anything's possible here, folks. So, I know it's going to be a short episode of the rundown, but it's just a debriefing of the Victory Bowl. It's just one game. It's hard to really extend this for like 20 minutes. But, like, I guess my final closing conclusion is for this game, it was a game for the ages. Definitely something people in future seasons look back on and say, man, that was actually a really good game. Like, Relly and LMJ on paper in a quarterback duel, in my opinion, it made it to its expectations. It was a good ball game that came down to a field goal. It came down to 3 points. So, closing statement. Let's get back to that. Both of these teams need to make smart decisions heading into next season. If they don't, you'll end up in the Tank Bowl. You'll end up hearing about me in one of these rundown episodes and be like, man, the DC Knights, or man, the Blue Steel City Vikings, they were on top of the world last season, and now look at them, halfway through the season, losing record, here in a Tank Bowl. I mean, that'd make headlines if that was like a real thing. Like, if this was a real league that had like lots of media coverage. Like, Victory Bowl, last season's Victory Bowl winners or last season's Victory Bowl runner-ups hit rock bottom in a Tank Bowl in week 4. Like, so they just gotta play smart. Play the cards smart, and strike while the iron's hot. If you can do those things, then just can't, and you gotta play good football. That, in the end, you gotta just play good football. Well, I think that's all. I think that's all I've got to say here for this episode of the Rundown. So I'll close it out here for you, folks. Representing Team Ocean, I am the Cowboy Crab, saying so long, everybody.